So hi everyone. For those that don't know me, my name's David Altschuler. I'm the co-founder and chair of One-to-One Children's Fund. I'm also a JRAN steering committee member, and I'm your host for this afternoon's forum. We're so glad that so many people have joined us, and this forum is on how we and each of our organizations are responding to the Afghan crisis and the challenges that we're facing here in the UK as a result right now. We're all involved in different ways, and by sharing our knowledge, sharing our experience, we can be all the stronger and make greater impact by connecting and working together. And that's what JRAN is all about. All of this is against the background of today, the House of Commons Foreign Affairs Committee inquiry about the UK's handling of the evacuation of Kabul in August, and that makes harrowing reading. But it, amidst all that is the escalating risks faced by Afghans seeking to flee into neighboring countries as the situation in Afghanistan continues to deteriorate, and we'll hear later all about that from Fawzia. And the dangers to asylum seekers being unable to flee Afghanistan are literally life-threatening. And while all countries have a sovereign right to regulate their borders, exceptions have to be made for those who are seeking safety. To quote the UNHCR website today, they put it really very clearly: allowing refugees and asylum seekers to enter a country even without documentation is a life-saving humanitarian gesture, and it's the cornerstone of the international asylum system. And we'll be hearing really the issues that are being faced in getting countries to welcome these asylum seekers, and even the 25 judges that Helena's got out with all their families, many of them stuck in Greece right now. We'll also be hearing first about how councils and communities here in London are responding, following that, a particular focus on addressing mental health needs, which often get overlooked until they manifest in different ways. And now we're really needing to be proactive in that regard, and we'll hear the wonderful work that's being done and what can be done, and how we need to alert the organizations that are working in this field to give them access. So we'll hear about, see this from different points of view, and then we'll break into workshops in about an hour's time to identify the key challenges of how we can best and how we can best address them, both as individuals and as organizations. And so we'll look at the challenges, and we'll brainstorm basically what the solutions are. And that will then come back to the session, and we'll draw some conclusions. And this will be followed at 7 o'clock by our keynote session with Sarah Chandler, who's on the call right now, Baroness Helena Kennedy, and Fawzia, who I've introduced earlier. And this session is going to be chaired by Judge Dennis Davis from South Africa, so I'm really looking forward to that. And if it's at all possible, please do not miss that session. For those who are not familiar with JRAN, JRAN stands for Joint Refugee Action Network. We bring together those working with refugees and asylum seekers to share knowledge and best practice and bring about actionable change, which is often best done together, jointly. Our first forum took place last year. We were joined by David Miliband and Elif Shafak. And as many of you know, the challenges that we were facing in delivery of services, in advocacy, in mental health and employment, those are the ones that we focused on then, and came out with some really tangible joint actions. Our second forum was earlier this year, and we focused on coaching and mentoring in the refugee sector. And we heard from some wonderful organizations and individuals who inspired and filled us with hope, as well as we're able to make valuable new connections in the sector. And today's keynote later on at 7 o'clock will be co-hosted by a graduate of the One-to-One Future Leaders Program, which Danny is also on this call, will be co-hosting with one of the graduates, which is an example of one of the many outstanding coaching and mentoring programs available to young refugees here in the UK. So before starting the forum now, I'd like to introduce Juliet and Zena, who are the energetic forces behind JRAN. And if you need anything during the forum, please message them and they should be able to help. I also want to introduce Michael Isaacs, who is keeping us all digitally connected. And I know, Fawzia, you met him earlier, so you're well connected. Michael will be placing us in our breakout rooms for the workshop session in about an hour. So if you have any technical issues, please message Michael on the chat, not Edie and not me. And just a general reminder to please use the chat to ask your questions to the presenters and share your thoughts. Right, so to start the forum, we're going to hear from Barnet Councillor Sarah Conway, a fellow JRAN steering committee member who will chair the first session. Sarah is deeply involved with the community sector, including as a Home Start volunteer, trustee of the Jewish Volunteering Network, and also Sebi's Corner, which have been providing a huge range of essential items to thousands of newly arrived Afghan refugees. Our first session focuses on the issues that are being faced on the ground here in the UK with councils as well as communities, and we're lucky to have some great people to present. So, Sarah, over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's lovely to see you here, and thank you very much for joining us. I'm really honoured to chair this session. The response from all of our local communities, but particularly in Barnet, which is where I know best, has been incredible. And I think with all the depressing news and the stuff that's going on today as well, it is really important for us all to take a moment to be able to share our learning, which is what this network is all about, and also to showcase and celebrate success. The response of our communities has been incredible, including all of you here, and the work that you've done. And I think it's really important to keep reminding ourselves and everybody else of that. There is a huge welcome for refugees in this country and in our communities too. I'd like to start by introducing Farida. I'm really lucky, and I think I can say this, that Farida is one of my local heroes and a friend. And
join our English classes, or if they want to get family therapy or counseling, then our outreach workers who are in the hotel, they refer them to different departments of our organization in order to help and support them. Regarding Afghans, 30% of our service users are from Afghanistan, and we have over 60 students, women, mainly housewives, that they are attending our ESOL classes. And we do have 5 counselors who speak Dari, Farsi, and Pashto, and we do provide Afghans with their own mother tongue language counseling. And also very soon, we are planning next year to set up Afghan project. And one of the key services that we are going to provide is in collaboration with the Association of Afghan Healthcare Professionals, which consists of 80 Afghan doctors. We try to provide special support for those Afghans who are newly arrived refugees in the UK and they have got any sort of health background, in order to help them to pass their exam and practice as a doctor or as a nurse or as a dentist in the UK. This new project, hopefully soon, when I say soon, maybe kind of April, May, we are going to start this new project to support Afghans. But at the moment, we do have around 9 Afghan families who are new arrivals, that we provide them advice and guidance, and we provide them a kind of package in terms of from benefit to counseling. And we are so lucky that we have got youth and youth activities as well for their children, English classes for the special tailored classes for Afghan refugees, that we provide English classes as well.
Thank you very much. I was actually being messaged about timekeeping. My problem is I could listen to everybody for hours here because it's just so incredible. From one amazing woman to another, we're now going to hear from Benaifer Bandari, who is CEO of Hopscotch Women's Centre, and she joined from the world's leading health organisation dedicated to women, La Leash League. She has an obsession for good governance, so no doubt timekeeping too. I'll get on with it. And she ensures that every action taken by Hopscotch is rooted in mission. She is also trustee for C4, which stands for the Camden Community Centres Consortium, and she's chair of Voluntary Action Camden and Global Generation. And if that wasn't enough, she also really enjoys being co-chair of Camden's Adult Safeguarding Board's Safeguarding Engagement Subgroup, where she ensures all voices are heard in the borough. Thanks very much. Let's hear from you now.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm actually calling from the basement of a venue where Voluntary Action Camden are having their Christmas party. So apologies if you hear music in the background. But Hopscotch Women's Centre is the organisation I'm CEO of, and the organisation that really has my heart. And that's because we have a particular way of working with women who are on the cusp of racial and gender inequity. And that's trauma informed and person centred, meaning that when somebody comes to access our services because they're facing poverty, abuse, unemployment, all our services wrap around them, with them in the centre. So when in August we heard that refugees, evacuees rather, from Afghanistan were landing and were in quarantine, we were asked to provide some supplies, and that really gave me an opportunity to speak with the council about what was their methodology here? What were they planning to do in terms of supporting people who are escaping trauma? How was the volunteering going to be trauma informed? And how were they going to meet the individual needs of families? Because we understand no group is homogenous. And I have an incredible amount of respect for Camden Council, because they did stop, they did listen, they put their volunteers, stood them down until they thought all of this through. And since then, we've been lead partners. And what this means is we work really closely with all the charities that are surrounding the hotels and wider out. We help coordinate everything so it has the best impact on the residents of the hotels. We're also the only organisation, apart from the statutory bodies, who are based in the hotels themselves. And the way we made that happen was to take on Afghan advocates. So we have 5 advocates who are in the hotels working with the management team and support team. And as Farida said, that the whole language and cultural understanding and respect is so nuanced. And what we realized early on was there was no point in dealing with a crisis when you yourself are acting out of crisis because you don't quite know what's going on. So taking that step back was essential. And for, you know, a juggernaut like the council to do that is huge. So they've been supporting our work to a degree, but beyond that, we've had an immense amount of giving from small family trusts, and particularly Jewish organizations. And, you know, I can't thank them enough, because what that allows organizations like us to do is to contract and expand our services beyond what Camden gives and says, here, go do that. So that's a little bit about what we do. I'm really sorry I'm not going to be able to stay for the whole session, but I hope to be invited again so I can do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's wonderful to hear from you, and I can hear lots of echoes with what's been going on in Barnet too, so that's great as well. Next, we've got our last wonderful woman for this session, Ruby Nasser, who is head teacher at the Edith Neville Primary School in Somerstown, Camden. She's been head teacher there for 3 years. Somerstown is classed as one of the most deprived wards in the UK, and her school community reflects this. I would say, coming, I think, from a similar ward that I represent, I totally understand a lot of kind of where you've been on this. So thank you very much. Off you go, Ruby. Thanks.
Hi. Just to say first off, I'm very sorry. My mic, my camera keeps turning off. So if it does, apologies, because I won't look at it while I'm speaking. So unlike the other two ladies who've spoken, we aren't necessarily as a primary school accustomed to supporting refugee children. But I've just outlined some of the challenges that we faced. We welcomed 41 children from Afghanistan in October this year. The children ranged in age from 3 to 11, and we tried really hard to meet their needs. The needs were varied, as you can imagine, and included therapeutic needs, health needs, clothing, uniform. What was really lucky for us was our partnership with local businesses. So because we were able to meet the needs of the children in a way that we wouldn't have been able to otherwise. So the costs of uniform and school meals were covered by the council, and some of the staffing costs, I found out today, will be reimbursed. But beyond that, there was a lot more that we wanted to do. So appropriate clothing was so important for the children, and just for them to have some choice. So we were given some donation money to spend on clothes vouchers so that they could buy items that were appropriate for them. We distributed clothing donations. We had referrals to many other charities, such as Little Village. One of our mothers actually gave birth in her hotel room and received support from Little Village the next day, which was incredible. The children were living in really small hotel rooms, and there were concerns around their safety around the hotel. So for us, it was key to find productive, fun things that they could do in their hotel rooms. So we received lots of toy and book donations, which we were able to distribute, but also money for devices. So an iPad for each family, which meant it brought a lot of joy to the children, but also some respite to the parents, because a lot of children and 2 adults in one hotel room, you can imagine how tricky that must have been. In terms of understanding what would be helpful, this was new to us. So we ran weekly drop-ins with our new parents so we could hear some of their concerns. A lot of the concerns were around food. And while the bridging hotels provide food, it wasn't necessarily what the children wanted to eat. So the children were hungry, but also mealtimes seemed fairly chaotic according to the families. And some of the younger children were quite scared of going into where food was being given. So we were able to provide breakfast club, but also make sure that there were supermarket vouchers so the children could at least have access to snacks, and their families could provide those. Another issue that we had was around health provision. So all families were registered with a Camden GP, but there were certain things that were unclear. For example, finding emergency dentists. So through the drop-ins, we were able to provide some support with this, because we all know it's difficult enough when English is your first language, let alone otherwise when services are new to you. Families also spoke about basic health needs, such as needing glasses. So our school nurse, the nursing team came in and did health reviews for all the new children, which was helpful and resulted in many of the children receiving glasses. There was also a child with severe health needs. So we were able to link up the school nurse to provide additional support for that family. Supporting therapeutic needs for the children is incredibly, we are finding that incredibly challenging because the need is great. Parents spoke of feeling isolated, understandably, and they asked for help with helping their children understand what's happened. And I think that's something we've tried very hard to do, but it is still a challenge because of the lack of mental health support within the borough for all children. A local independent school has offered us use of their art therapist in January, so that should provide some respite. The children were understandably unsettled when they started. So we had, please tell me if I'm running out of time, but what we felt was that we just needed to provide a safe home base. So we split the children into 2 groups and provided some language support, and very quickly many could move into mainstream classes. Someone else mentioned English classes. We have a family centre on site, so we were able to offer ESOL classes through that, which was helpful. And Local Globe, a local a business that was local to us, also funded sessions at local organisations so families could get to know the area. Road safety was a challenge that we came across quite quickly. We had a call from the British Transport Police very early on. They'd found one of our children on the road, one of our new children, and they only identified him through his school book bag. And that was in the first week. But very quickly, we then realised we needed to teach the children what to do if you get lost, who to approach, all of these things which were so new to our new children. We tried really hard to think about what the children would need to know, and that's what we're currently developing, is exactly what we can put in place to make sure that they are ready to leave, because they are with us for a short time and many have already moved on. We've still got a few and we have more children starting in January. Things like improving self-esteem and a sense of belonging, but also more practical things like how to use a local service, how to use money. We're working on a parallel curriculum to support the children who come in. And the last thing to say, I think, is just how unsettling things can be for families. An example of that is almost all of our children have now been moved to a hotel outside of London just when they were putting down roots. And I think that's just something we have to get better at preparing the children for, is that level of transition and making sure that they are ready when that happens. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruby. I know when we spoke before, you also talked about the impact that had on your own children in school and how to prepare them for everyone going as well. And so I think running through all of this is how you have all been able to create community in different ways for people, which is really, really important. I think we've now got 10 minutes. If I'm looking panicked, it's because I suddenly can't see anyone, but I'm hoping to bring you back on my screen now. Yep. We've now got 10 minutes for questions. So I suppose if I can kick it off, if that's all right, as chair's prerogative, because there's nothing in the chat at the moment. I know in Barnet, some of the issue has been how long now, particularly children and young people and families, have been in our hotels. It's been well over a year. I was really interested about the idea of schools and other community places as spaces for people to go, particularly, hopefully now we're not in COVID lockdown situation, which makes it very different to last winter as well. And so I guess I'm wondering if there should be a toolkit, something shared that we could do to sort of, you know, from everyone's experience and things like that. But I wonder, you know, if any of the three speakers have any suggestions for what we do as time goes on. I know we've talked about people leaving quickly, but for those that are kept here a long time. So I don't know who would like to start with that. I don't know, Ruby, if you'd like to.
Yeah,
thank you.
I think one of the things that's helped our families, the parents who've come to our school, is that link to local places, because as you said, there's very little to do during the day. And I think the community that we have in our school, they're very active. They want to be doing things. It's very difficult to go from being, in their words, productive citizens, to coming and just sitting in a hotel room, which is how they are feeling. So for us, it was linking them up with places like the Story Garden, which is an organisation where they can go and use facilities there, but also about, they said they want to help, they want to be productive. So we are looking at for January how we can include within our family centre something about employability, things about just making sure that we are trying to meet that need as well. But it's difficult.
Sorry, I'm so busy listening that I've muted myself. Farida, did you have your hand up to say something as well on that?
Yes, actually, thanks to Barnet Council, I managed to talk to Barnet Council, and because in one of the hotels, there's only 6 minutes walk from Unitas, and Unitas is a center with lots of facilities. This is why we are in the process of registering young people to join Unitas. That's for children. But for other hotel, obviously it's not walking distance, they need to take the bus. But obviously we are a little bit not sure if who will pay for their travel expense in order to come from the Palm Hotel to Unitas because there's only one bus that they need to take. This is an issue of travel expense for the adult member of the family to bring their kids. But for Stay Club, it's just walking distance. And I'm in the process of registering some of the kids, and thanks to Barnet Council, who will provide us funding to pay for the membership. And each time when they go, they only pay 50p, but if they want to have lunch, it will be £1.50. And I think we have around, with the age of 8 to 24, we have around kind of maybe 60 or 55 people that I'm in the process of register them. But for adults, I think it will be a great idea if we can do coffee mornings, something to engage different nationalities to come together, because they are in the hotel. They can't do anything. They don't have a TV. They're just in a small room. But obviously, with the food problem everywhere, all the hotels, I'm sure that Benifer will agree with me about the quality of the food, especially in contingency hotels. That's why I think coffee morning or some sort of gathering. We do have women's group that because of COVID at the moment we do online, and we have around 15 women from these two hotels that they are joining our women's group. And also you have been to our garden allotment that during summer, we have engaged 87 of clients from one of the hotels to come and engage on daily basis to come to on a rota to come to the allotment. But I think as a kind of gathering, in order to build up their confidence, to improve their language and improve their mental health and well-being, this is something that will be great if possible to help us.
That's great, thank you. I've got 3 questions actually, 2 are in the chat, and one I can see Andrew's got his hand up. Rachel Ellison, I don't know if you'd like to go next, and I know that follows on, actually you were asking about oyster and transport costs as part of that.
Yeah.
I just put it in the chat. One response was about toiletries and the coffee morning idea, and how very healing this was for women just to process their trauma, because they're busy all day and yet have nothing to do. And this toiletries thing meant they had a kind of a regular pampering morning where they could meet each other. That was done in a Greek refugee camp, so it can certainly be somehow created in a hotel in Camden. And I was just thinking, with the food bank that I run a hub, we put out calls for toiletries, and people bring all sorts of things they've picked up from hotels, whether it's slippers or shower caps or moisturizers. So we've probably all got things at home already. Might be something people could put out to their communities to donate, and then you have the event created for free. And then another family I heard who are in a hotel in Haringey borough next door. The mother wants to take the children to museums, so it just showed a real intention to educate. And there's nothing to do in school time. Children are in school for 6 hours, but when it's not school, can you imagine what the holidays look like if you cannot afford to take your children anywhere at all, if it's a museum? So again, I wondered if certain charities could donate just the cost of the fare for the parents to take children to museums.
Yeah, and I know there have been some museum outings done in our borough actually by a couple of the organisations, which has been great. Ellen, did you want to ask a question next?
I basically put my question in the chat. I'm just asking what, as local residents, many of us, our parents were refugees, what we can do to support other than we've already, given toys and stuff like that, because clearly these people need a lot of support to be made welcome and to have enough money and resources to settle down and build a new life.
Benifer, did you want to answer that? I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, Ellen, that's a really good question. It's one that we get asked a lot. In some ways, money donations are the best way forward so that those who are specialists can get on with the work. But in other ways, all organizations are looking for good, committed volunteers. So it doesn't actually matter how many hours a day or a week you're providing, is just being consistent with that, so that the charities who you're volunteering with can manage their programs efficiently. I know that with the bridging hotels in Camden, we don't know how long the residents are going to be there for, but the way we've tackled the question before, you know, about sort of long-term and boredom, is just making sure the local charities are all plugged in and are all coordinated and putting on events so that the pressure is spread. It's not all on one charity or one organization. And the other thing that I'm hoping to set up from January is just a little initiative myself where we take some of the residents who've got English, maybe who are professional, who just need that kind of stimulation out on walks. So at that point, I'll be reaching out for, you know, anybody who wants to come and join me, and we can do this once a week. And you know, the more of us there are, the more people we can take out for walks around beautiful London, you know.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you. Andrew?
So Andrew Jacobs from the Barnet Refugee Welcome Board. It's wonderful to hear some of the work that's being done, but our group is incredibly frustrated by the lack of information that's coming from government. We hear nothing from Victoria Atkins or senior Home Office managers, and we've had people in hotels for 3 or 4 months, and it's going so incredibly slowly. I don't know, it may come up later in this forum, but I wanted to put it out there on the agenda that we need to have more information.
Yeah, I think everybody on here would agree with that. I don't know if anyone else has got one more question. I can see the organisers looking slightly panicked at that, but we do have 3 minutes. So I don't know if anybody...
I just wanted to say to Andrew, it's not only that the Home Office is withholding information, it's just so much of it is sensitive that even if the local authority knows, they're then really bound by how much they can share it. So it's frustration all across the board.
It is, but I guess through all that frustration is all of this wonderful stuff that's happening and that has happened. And I know I've been moved to tears by the reaction of all our communities. Sorry, I can just see Danny's hand up. So you can get told off, not me.
I'll get told off. Just a quick question, just based on what Andrew was asking. Given that the Home Office are really slow in giving us information, is there collaboration amongst the councils? Because I know the local organizations are doing a very good job of collaborating and speaking to each other, but are councils sharing information and talking to each other?
So yes, as far as I'm aware, and so we've been told on our sessions, and also the GLA is trying to do some of that bridging, but I think the difficulty is no one is getting the information, you know, and we've heard that the Afghan settlement scheme isn't actually happening yet. So it is very difficult, very frustrating. And I don't know if there's something maybe for all of us as different groups and people together to kind of raise collectively, possibly, to just get a little bit more clarity out there. It is difficult, it is tricky. I can see Edie waving at me, so everyone can tell her off. Go for it, Edie, and then we're done. But you need to unmute. You need to unmute, Edie.
Just in response to that, JCO is hoping to organize a small group of rabbis to go to the Home Office to actually ask, demand information, because I mean, this story is just coming up over and over again. And I think it's how we engage other parts of civil society and also religious groups to start demanding answers, actually, and to ask, you know, where is Victoria Atkins? It's time. So, I mean, you know, she should be giving reports monthly so that we actually have the information so we could better organize things.
Yep. Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for joining this first session, to all of the speakers, all of the questions, and thanks for everything you're all doing. Thank you.
And thank you, Sarah. That was incredibly inspiring to hear how it's been possible to support families in schools and communities, the initiatives, museum outings, women's coffee groups. In the refugee camps in Greece, we had knitting groups, which proved immensely therapeutic in different ways, and also created warm clothes for the winter. And it's a matter of, I think, if you can take into the groups later how to coordinate all of our efforts, because that's the key. That's going to be the key to